Hey, what's going on guys? Chad here with Greenlight Shooting and welcome to this new video. So if you're a fan of the channel, if you've been following along, you know that I'm in the process of building my very first AR-15 ever. I'm really excited about it. Before I ordered the parts, I did a lot of research on all the different parts out there. I learned a lot about specifically lower receivers. And I just wanted to share that information that I learned, pass it along to you guys in case you're considering buying your first AR or something like that. Yeah, like I said, I just did this research, want to pass it along. So I'm no expert by any means, but you know, I think I have a good grasp on what's out there. The lower receiver is the actual firearm in an AR-15. It's the part that's serialized. It's the part that you generally have to go through an FFL dealer if you want to get, unless you're doing something like an 80% or something like that. But for the most part, this is the actual registered portion of your AR-15. There's a lot of different thoughts on the lower. You know, a lot of people say that it's sort of the foundation of the gun. A lot of people say a lower is a lower is a lower. You know, it doesn't matter what kind, what it's made out of, anything. It's all going to function the same. I'll kind of let you decide on your own thoughts for that, but I just want to give you some information as to what's out there. So there are a couple different ways you can buy a lower in terms of, I guess, what comes with it. So there's like this, so like I said, this is a stripped lower. This is just the lower, that's it. You know, no trigger, no grip, no nothing. This thing is just the lower. So that's a stripped lower. Next up is the, you can get like a complete lower. So if you just want to buy this thing all ready to go with a stock, with a grip, with a trigger group, all that, then you can just buy the complete lower kit. And then finally, if you want to actually get a little machining and stuff like that, you can get like an 80% lower. So it's 80% finished. You have to do a little bit of machining yourself. I don't have any experience with an 80%, so I don't really want to talk too much about that. I really just want to talk about the stripped lowers and kind of the materials that they're made of, so you can kind of decide which one's best for you and your build. So generally speaking, there are 3 different types of AR-15 lower receivers in terms of what they're made out of. So first off is polymer. Now polymer is pretty new to the scene. If you're familiar with guns like Glock and Smith & Wesson MMPs and stuff like that, that's polymer, right? That kind of hard plastic that the frames are made out of. So they do make lowers that are made out of that polymer. Now, like I said, they're fairly new to the market, so there isn't a ton of research on its durability, but you know, some people really love it. Some people say, I just don't want to touch that. But really the pros of a polymer lower is it's incredibly cost effective. So you can get some lowers for really a good price. Whether or not they'll stand the test of time, that's still kind of out to debate, but I haven't heard too many bad things about them. One thing I will say is, while reading a lot of reviews on polymer lowers, if you're building it from like a stripped lower phase like this, you know, you're putting pins and you're applying pressure in certain parts, and like this one, I saw someone trying to put a pin in here and this whole portion just snapped off. Now that's a lot more likely to happen with the polymer than something like this aluminum. And that brings us to the next material that lowers are made of, and this is really kind of the bulk of the market. So there's 2 ways that the aluminum can be formed into this lower. So first up is forging the aluminum, and this is essentially done with, you know, a lot of compressing force. Basically it's being hammered into shape using like forging dies and stuff like that, and then it's finished off with the CNC. And the other option is billet aluminum, which is essentially just a block of aluminum that they're machining down to your lower receiver. The pros of billet is that since it's starting as a full block, they can kind of, it's more aesthetically pleasing. They can change it up however they want. You know, like you see those fancy lowers with skulls on the end and warthogs and stuff like that. Well, that's all done using billets because they can shape that block however they want. Versus in a forged, it's like dies, right? They're already kind of made. So billets are seen as a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, maybe a little more unique, stuff like that. The lines can also be a little bit crisper and cleaner. Now there's a big price difference between forged and billet. Forged are almost always more accessible, they're more inexpensive. You know, generally speaking, they can start as low as like 50 bucks and go up to 100, 150, something like that. When you start getting into billet lowers, you know, you're really starting about 200 bucks and up. So there's a huge difference in terms of price. There's a lot of arguments whether forged is stronger than billet just by the fact of how it's manufactured. I don't know too much about that. What I will tell you is there are two different types of aluminum that affect both of these. There is a 6061 or a 7075, I believe are the numbers. The tensile strength in the 7075 is much higher than the 6061. Really the only time that I see people like manufacturing these 6061s are just really to cut costs. But for the most part, everywhere I looked, every lower I saw was 7075. So I'd recommend sticking with 7075 just because the tensile strength is so much stronger, and you know, the price difference is sort of negligible. So I feel like that was sort of a lot of information. Basically, you've got polymer on the lower, kind of more accessible and expensive end. You've got forged aluminum on the middle level affordability end, and then billet aluminum on the higher affordability end. I will say, after shopping around, forged aluminum seemed to be by far the most accessible. Like almost everyone I talked to who built an AR is going with forged. The only time I heard of people going with billets is if they're really kind of putting a lot of money into their gun. They're making like a trophy gun, really, something that'll really show well. But for the most part, forged was really the popular choice. So if you're looking for your very first AR-15 lower, I would probably recommend going with a forged aluminum 7075 lower. It's going to cover most, probably 90% of people's builds with their AR-15. If you're really wanting to you know, keep budget low, maybe try out this polymer, see how it does. I've heard good things about it, but like I said, there's just maybe not enough, it hasn't been around long enough to really get a ton of information on. The billet one I'd only go with if you're wanting a real kind of a trophy gun or something like that. If you're wanting a real fancy looking gun, go billet. Otherwise, if you're like, you know, 90% of the people building their first AR, check out that forged aluminum. There are a bunch of different options for forged aluminum. This one specifically is the Spikes Tactical. This is not paid endorsement, anything like that. This is just the one I picked up for mine. This one was $100. I liked it. I thought it looked cool. I've seen them as low as like $50 for the Anderson ones. I've heard great things about Anderson, so you know, not saying one's better than the other. But yeah, there are a lot of options out there. I hope that helped a little bit kind of narrow down your choices and maybe inform you if this is your first time dealing with AR-15 lowers. Kind of like it was for me. So anyways, if this did help out, please hit that thumbs up button. That helps me out a bunch. Share this video. And if you're interested on the entire AR-15 build, check out the AR-15 build videos that I'm putting together. And we'll see how this thing comes together. I'm really excited. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time on Greenlight Shooting.